morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I must first express my appreciation to the Commander and the Sri Lankan Army for the extraordinary hospitality showered upon us. It is an honor to be standing in front of you today to contribute, share, and learn together in this internationally renowned Colombo Defense Seminar. The topic on education strategies in internal security is key to strengthen the theme for this year's seminar, Countering Violence, Extremism, Global Trends. My scope for today's session is actually on the Singapore experience. So I'll share with you what Singapore had done so far. And I'll share on how has Singapore made education as a focal point and how they have made education easily available for every Singaporean. And in doing so, give every citizen opportunity to be educated and assimilated in a multiracial and multi-religious setting. So this is the scope. Education is the foundation for security and stability of a nation. For education to contribute to prosperity and peace of a nation, the government should develop a national education policy. The cornerstone of a national education policy is to integrate the diverse ethnic and religious community. If schools are designed in a way to segregate the community, that is, if the diverse communities go to school of their own linguistic and religious denomination, then a nation will never be united. At the heart of creating a stable and secure nation state, it is to ensure that all ethnic and religious communities study together from kindergarten until they complete primary, secondary, and tertiary education. No multi-ethnic, multi-religious country can sustain stability and security if the citizens of their country grow up in silos where they do not intermingle, integrate, and assimilate in creating the nation state. It is inevitable that there will be suspicion, prejudice, hatred, and insults leading to incitement and violence unless there are integration and assimilation to the communities. Such policy in national education requires leadership, political will, and vision. So here is a quote from our late Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew when we first started to embark on our national education policy. That he said you have to build in reflexes of group thinking, the survival of the community, not the survival of the individual, which means a reorientation, a reshuffling of emphasis of values. Eventually, we must produce the kind of men and women who can run this tightly knit society and who have the determination to do it. We must have qualities of leadership at the top and qualities of cohesion on the ground. So what were the challenges we face? The years 1959 to 1965 were significant in the history of Singapore's educational transformation. The government took the conventional path in developing new skills and work attitudes to accommodate new economic strategies. While the economic of education was in focus, the role of education in socialization and nation-building process, especially in terms of developing a Singapore identity, was not forgotten. National integration through a national education system was seen as the key condition for economic survival. Singapore drew its education system from good practices around the world and developed our own system. Singapore has built a national education policy, strategy, and plan aimed at the integration of its diverse ethnic and religious communities. Singapore's prosperity today is a direct resolution of the ethnic and religious harmony of the nation state. So here you can see, for example, in its public school social study textbook, there is a dedicated section where students are exposed to different ethnic and religious traditions to cherish and embrace diversity. The ethnic and religious harmony Singapore is enjoying today is the foundation of its prosperity. So here I give you some examples from the student's textbook at 12-year-old. The architect of that foundation is in fact a Sri Lankan-born S. Rajarathnam, who was our first foreign affairs minister, and he passed away after reaching a position of deputy prime minister, then senior minister. The late Mr. Sinnathamby Rajarathnam was born in Vatukote in Jaffna Peninsula. Shortly after independence, Mr. S. Rajarathnam wrote the National Pledge in 1966 to inculcate national consciousness and patriotism in schools. He believed that language, race, and religion were potentially divisive factors and used the pledge to emphasize that these differences could be overcome if Singaporeans were united in their commitment to the country. The university that I work at has dedicated in his honor the S. Rajarathnam School of International Studies, where we conduct research into extremism, terrorism, and other subjects pertaining to national security of Singapore and the region. This is our national pledge, and it's recited during school assemblies daily. It's actually in 4 different languages. It's also recited during the Singapore Armed Forces Day, the National Day Parade, and the National Day observance ceremonies. Our latest research demonstrates that it is not only ethnic extremism that leads to terrorism, but also exclusivism. Exclusiveness is segregating into separate exclusive circles, not integrating with other faiths. To prevent this, various communities and their leaders were committed to working together to strengthen our social harmony. No community insisted that its race or its language or its practices should be above any of the others. Singapore is aware that differences in language, race, or religion could easily be exploited to generate conflict. We have to live peacefully together and maintain our common space that all Singaporeans share. It has to be neutral, secular. This is the only way all of us can feel at home in Singapore and at ease, where all races and religions interact and enlarge the common space to unite all Singaporeans. Common spaces like public housing, schools, workplaces, our bilingual policy, all of these brought families of all races and religions together, while allowing each community to maintain strong links to its own language, culture, and roots. In the context of Singapore, the National Service was introduced in 1967. It was made mandatory to all male Singaporeans. This is to provide defense for Singapore and to foster cohesiveness among the male Singaporeans. The 2-year stint offers an ideal opportunity for our young men to build strength of character, grow in maturity, and develop leadership skills. Total defense involves every Singaporean playing a part, individually and collectively, to build a strong, secure, and cohesive nation. When we are strong, we are able to deal with any crisis. Today, threats and challenges to Singapore can come in many unexpected shapes and forms: natural disaster, climate change, energy, water and food scarcity, piracy, illegal immigration, radicalization, and cybercrime are examples of the wide range of threats we face today. Our response to such challenges involves every Singaporean playing a part, the young, the old, men and women, regardless of race or religion. Every small act counts, whether it is being vigilant against suspicious activities, respecting and accepting people of different ethnic backgrounds, taking care of our environment, showing support of our national servicemen on duty at home or abroad, or simply looking out for one another. This is the essence of total defense, that when we each play our part, we help to strengthen the nation as well as ourselves. Total defense is a framework from all-round response to threats and challenges involve all Singaporeans in the following 5 aspects. Military defense. We need a strong military defense to defend ourselves when attacked or to deter foreign intervention and to prevent ourselves from being attacked. The Singapore Armed Forces is a conscript armed force, depending on not only its regulars, but also the commitment of its national servicemen and the support of their families and employers. To remain operationally ready, our servicemen keep fit, train seriously, and keep abreast of the latest military doctrines and equipment. Civil defense. During times of crisis or disaster, resources will be strained and we will need everyone to pitch in. If we know what to do, we can save ourselves and our loved ones, help others, and ensure that lives goes on as normally as possible. Learning what to do in an emergency before it happens, such as taking part in emergency exercises and attending first aid and emergency conducts, help us to respond more effectively in times of crisis. The threat of global terrorism is real, and security personnel cannot be everywhere all the time. Singaporeans can do our part to keep Singapore well protected by helping to keep a lookout and reporting anything suspicious. Third, we have the economic defense. Economic defense is about building up a strong and robust economy that can sustain Singapore through economic challenges and national emergency. It means that the government, employers, trade unions all work together during peacetime to ensure that we have good infrastructure and our economy is competitive. Individuals also play a part by retraining and upgrading and by keeping up with new technologies and new ways of doing things. When we do this, we help ourselves remain employable as well as when the economy changes. To prepare for national emergencies, the government and businesses work together to put in place contingency measures to keep offices and factories running even after national servicemen and equipment have been mobilized, and to maintain national stockpiles of essential items to keep the economy going. We are also taking steps to enhance our country's defenses against cyber attacks so that our critical infrastructure and data remain secure. Social defense. Singapore enjoys social and economic stability because people of all races and religion live together harmoniously. We know what could happen if we allow extremist ideologies and racial prejudice and discrimination to endanger social cohesion and harmony. We befriend, accept, and help people of different ethnicities. We show consideration for one another, respecting and being sensitive to the needs and religious and cultural practices of others. We have meals together and invite friends to join in our festivity. Through such small efforts in our daily life, we are able to better understand and appreciate the heritage, culture, and practices of our fellow countrymen and strengthen our bonds as Singaporeans. And finally, psychological defense. While being prepared is the key to total defense, it is always the fighting spirit, the will, the resilience of Singaporeans that determines whether or not our nation will overcome a crisis. When each Singaporean is resolved and determined to overcome any crisis together, proud of our country and willing to stand up to defend what is ours, we can be assured of a secure future regardless of the challenge. Today's threats are both in the physical and in the cyber domain. The military should work very closely with the law enforcement and national security branches to constantly update the wider government of the threats and challenges. The military should closely monitor the ideological landscape to identify any threat seeking to divide the ethnic and religious communities. They must play a frontline role while the law enforcement authorities and the national security agencies to map the likely scenarios and then to develop countermeasures, both strategic and operational. Without that collaboration and without that permanent presence, terrorists, extremists, and the exclusivists will infiltrate and seek to influence the education, the religious, and the information domains. It is a wrong notion among democracies that the military should not be involved in the security of the nation. In fact, the military has a significant role to play both in internal security and external defense, both in times of peace and war. The military should be directly involved in integrating the nation and defending against threats, whether internal or external. Security education is also important to constantly advise leaders and the rest of the government of threats a nation faces, whether from within or outside. There should be a synergy between the education industry and national security. The education system should be geared to understand the threat facing the nation state and develop the courses and training programs to prepare the existing and the emerging generation to secure the nation state. In conclusion, the future security and stability of our nation states very much depend on working together as partners to secure our population, both from domestic and foreign ideologies of exclusivism, extremism, and terrorism. Sri Lanka is very fortunate to have ended the 30-year conflict in 2009, but it must create a post-conflict legal framework, the institutions and the platform to prevent a re-emergence of the ideological extremism of separatism. These can largely be accomplished by investing in education reform and not by maintaining status quo. The greatest gift Sri Lankas today can give to your future generation is to create a national education system that binds all ethnic and religious communities into one Sri Lanka. With that, I end my session. Thank you.